Hey, Illuminate Teens. I wanted to share with you something that I'll actually be preaching on Sunday, but in a little different perspective. And we're going to be continuing our series here, and we're actually going to be talking about Job, and it's a great timing for that because he would have been one of the patriarchs, or he would have been during that time period. How he interceded for his family, and the wealth was known by animals rather than gold and precious metals and things like that. So there's a reasoning behind it. But again, today we want to talk about suffering and God's presence, and the doctrine that we want to assess here is that God is immanent in the way that he is very distinct from his creation, but yet he is very personal with his creation as well, those that he created in his image. And so I just really want to help you, and this is very, very needed for this time, in the sense of a lot of people don't think that God actually cares and that he is with us and wants to care for us and provide, and he's in control, and really their view of God lessens in this time for many, because they say, how could a loving God do this and that when we're seeing all the suffering that's going on around us? But there is suffering with God being present. Now, the character that we're going to be talking about today is Job, and he's one of my favorite characters in the Bible, just to be able to see his example and see all that he went through, and yet he's very raw and real with his suffering, but yet he continued to follow God. And there was a lot that transpired over time and through the chapters, but I just want to be able to help you understand God's immanence here with his creation. So as we get into this, first I want to say that God is distinct from his creation. And how would you figure that out? Well, in summarization, you would see, starting in chapter 38, God actually starts talking to Job, and he starts asking all these questions, like in verse 4, where was thou when I laid the foundations of the earth? Declare if thou hast understanding. Who hath laid the measures thereof, if thou knowest, or who hath stretched the line upon it? And he basically goes in and he asks all kinds of questions to Job, and to see, okay, do you really understand that all that I've done and all that I'm doing, and that this whole creation consists by me, and that God's stating that he's in control of it? Even talks about Leviathan and the behemoth, so a dinosaur and a dragon. And I know that sounds kind of crazy, but it's true. They were present while man was present. I know evolution will tell you something totally different, but the Bible tells you that this is what happened. But God's in control of these large animals that would be very, very difficult for us to be able to control. And so we just, again, come back to understand that God is way bigger than me, and he understands his ways are higher than my ways. His thoughts are higher than my thoughts. I mean, it's very different in that he is distinct. But then at the same time, you'll recognize that God draws near to his creation. And how would you understand that? Well, even in chapter 38, you recognize that God speaks to Job personally. Now, he comes in a whirlwind, and that'd be very interesting to be able to see. And I can't wait to be able to see God one day in heaven. But even in verse 5 of chapter 1, it talks about how Job continually was going before him, but before God. But you see here that God definitely speaks to Job and draws near to his creation and cares and wants to help Job through the suffering. And the best way to do it is to focus on God, focus on him, and give him the glory and worship him for who he is. Now, the last thing that I really wanted to point out was the fact that God has uniquely created humanity to be in a relationship with him. And he highlights that again in verse 5 of chapter 1. And it says, and it was so, in the days of their feasting were gone about, that Job sent and sanctified them, and rose up early in the morning and offered burnt offerings according to the number of them all. For Job said, it may be that my sons have sinned and cursed God in their hearts. Thus did Job continually. So Job was consistently going before God and casting these offerings just in case, to intercede for his children, just in case they sinned. But it also goes on down in verse 8, and the Lord said unto Satan, hast thou considered my servant Job, that there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and an upright man, one that feareth God and escheweth evil? I mean, God is even recognizing who Job is. There's a relationship there. There's a connection that God has made with Job, and that's what helps Job get through this, especially at the very end. And you see Job responding with complete humility and repentance for questioning God at times on what he's done. And you find it in chapter 40, in just that he says, behold, I am vile, what shall I answer thee? How can I even say anything? I will lay mine hand upon my mouth. Once I have spoken, but I will not answer, yea, twice, but I will proceed no further. It's like, I can't even say anything right now. Just in response to the majesty of God. And in 42, it says, I know that thou canst do everything, and that no thought can be withholden from thee. So God knows everything. No thought, even what I think, is withheld from God. It says, who is he that hideth counsel without knowledge? Therefore have I uttered that I understood not, things too wonderful for me, which I knew not. I just don't understand. I don't understand every aspect of what's going on around me. Okay? And to be honest, I don't have to understand. And this is something that I've been struggling with today, and just trying to understand and trying to comprehend all, and try to take it all in, and trying to deal with all the circumstances that are put in our hands, and I've been wrestling with this in a major way. But it says, here I beseech thee, and I will speak, I will demand of thee, and declare thou unto me, I have heard of thee by the hearing of the ear, but now mine eye seeth. I'm seeing more and more of who you are. Wherefore I abhor myself and repent in dust and ashes. I can't believe what I just did, and I'm actually repenting. And so this is how Job is responding to God's majesty and worship and humility. And this is something that I need to do personally on a regular basis. I just need to be able to go before God and say, God, you're much bigger than I am. God, reveal yourself more and more to me through your scriptures, through creation, through other people. I mean, God reveals himself in so many ways. But how does Christ connect to all of this? Job called out for a mediator between he and God so many times. Will somebody come in between me and God and bring us together to stop all this craziness that's going on? Job really struggled. I mean, he was completely raw, and there was no covering here. I mean, he was just open. And you say, you know what? Who is that? That's Christ. The picture there is Christ came, and he's actually mediating for us. It says, greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. Christ came in between us and God and made it to where we can have that relationship with him. The question is, do you have that relationship? Because there's a sin that separates us from God, and it messes us up, doesn't it? I mean, it just gets us to think about all the negative things, and very selfish at times. I am. I imagine everybody struggles with this, but just coming back and saying, okay, Jesus is what brings me closer to God in that sense of salvation, but I just need to look into the author and finisher of my faith. Okay, who also suffered when he didn't have to suffer. He did it for my sake. So as you're coming back into this and saying, okay, God is immanent in the fact that he is distinct from his creation. He's distinct. I mean, he's very different in the sense that, I mean, he's holy, he's righteous, he has a perfect love and all these things that is very different from his creation, but yet he draws near to us. He's personally interacting with us, and what a blessing to have a God who cares, who will stepped down and love us the way that he has. So I hope that encouraged you. I hope that's challenged for you in just understanding God and his presence amidst suffering. We can still suffer while he is present, and it's his presence that helps us get through this suffering. We'll talk to you later.